What an epic start to today. And we're going to build on it because next we have our second speaker of the day, who is Nnanna, and he is going to be talking to us about women in media and storytelling, shaping national narratives. So, yet another different industry that we're going to learn about today and the impact on and for women within this industry. So, who is Nnanna? Let's learn a little bit about him before we hear from him. Nnanna is a filmmaker, media entrepreneur, digital technologist, and innovator focused on storytelling, cultural preservation, and legacy documentation. He's the founder of Acucom, which is a revolutionary AI-driven platform digitalizing storytelling by integrating AI, voice recognition, and augmented reality to preserve personal and cultural legacies. So relevant to today's world with AI just being at the forefront. Nnanna's actually got over 18 years of experience across telecommunications, film production, and digital storytelling. He's played a key role in optimizing Africa's largest core transmission network, achieving 30% bandwidth savings, and developing tools for network efficiency. Within media, he's led to the creation of Cinematics NG, which is a premier production company working with well-known names, producing documentaries, live events, and immersive storytelling experiences. He has extensive accolades beyond media production, as you can see in front of you right now, as a leader and speaker, as well as an educator and a mentor. His achievements have earned him rightfully and well deservedly the recognition among Nigeria's 60 most influential event professionals and awards at the Real Time International Film Festival. Nnanna, we are truly honored to have you with us here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, That's so much. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Noella. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for every member of the team at the Growth Conference. Fantastic conference. It's a privilege and an honor to be blessed amongst women and to be part of the story about women. And I don't take it for granted. Really, I don't. It's a good thing to have a few men who understand women and then who are going to be part of the process and the progress to move the motion forward. Thanks a lot for the introduction. My name is Nnanna Adim. I'm a digital technologist and a storyteller. So I'm a storyteller by heart and also by skill in terms of what I do. But I tell more stories behind the scene than in front of the camera. I'm more a behind the scene kind of person than in front of the camera. Because from the few years I've been living on Earth, I've come to realize that there's a lot of stories yet to be told. So with my skill set and my experience in engineering, coupled with the media enterprise, I'm now focused on telling stories and then helping, us and Africans to preserve their heritage through storytelling. There was a story my mother told me some years back that in our village, somewhere in Imo State in Nigeria, there was a family, there were two families that had this rivalry of land ownership, was the land ownership dispute. And it had been on for about 25 to 30 years. And it became so intense that the rivalry had moved from one generation to the next generation, and it was still going on. And they were at a point, so they've gone through the local village council dispute resolution, and it wasn't resolved. And they've gone through court, it wasn't resolved, and they've gone through different levels of resolution, and it wasn't resolved. And they came to the point where it was at daggers drawn moment when anything could have really, really gone really wrong and really bad with the entire family. But someone saved the day. Someone somehow, somewhere remembered that there's a grandmother to one of the families who was alive when the land issue actually happened, when the ownership of the land took place. And somehow, somewhere, they were able to bring her into the picture. She stood where women are not supposed to be, because in most of African cultures, women are not supposed to be in the same gathering with men, especially when it has to do with land. Richard mentioned it earlier that, I mean, women don't own land, talk less about knowing ownership, but because the people in that generation were no longer available, and she was a witness to how the land ownership came to be. She stood and told a well-detailed story of the narration and the ownership and the history of the land up to date, to the point that it was her narrative that actually saved the day, saved the problem, and the issue was resolved among the families, and that was how that story was resolved. So women in storytelling cannot be overemphasized. Women are very, very needed in nation building and in storytelling across the world, because when women tell stories, they don't just tell stories, they preserve memories. I know most of in our families, it's mostly the mothers that remember the things that happen to the kids, the children, as compared to the fathers, because most time, generally, men are always out there hustling, but women are more, more humble to understand and capture every story of what happens in the house as compared to the men. So women actually keep stories in terms of memory keeping, and then they build families, they help use their story to heal wounds, and then definitely build nation. Because back in my village then, that would have been a story that would have been a story that would have, scattered the whole family, but a woman was able to resolve that. So the power of women's voices in storytelling is very, very, very important. So again, families, because I'm big on families, so I will always, refer back to family, because again, family is the most minute version of a nation and a people, because a nation starts from different families. So women in families definitely are storytellers, because when they speak, people get to listen to them. In the society generally, if I can give a few examples in the industry, um, Oprah Winfrey, we all know, is a very good storyteller. She was able to, in her 25 years of media experience, she was able to tell good stories of all the people around her, and even her life story as well. And she was able, through media and storytelling, she was able to change, how the world view trauma by addressing so many traumatic experiences across, different people from different ethnic groups. Malala, if we remember Malala, the young girl that was shot, a few years, with her stories, she was able to change the world view on girl education. I remember she was shot because girls were not allowed to study in her culture, and she actually wanted to study. Um, Chimamanda, Chimamanda Adichie, that's a Nigerian storyteller that we know. In her quest for storytelling through writing, she has reframed feminism for Africa and beyond through storytelling, through writing of books. So women as nation builders through storytelling are also home builders, because I mean that's the first political institution before we get to the nation, and it cannot be overemphasized. Mothers shape values, beliefs, and identity. I remember in this same line of storytelling and belief and identity, when I was about 19 years and 20 years, I just finished school and I went to another location to visit my cousins, and I stayed with them because they were older cousins, and I got influenced, with my older cousins who were in their 25s and 30s, and I got into smoking. I started smoking with them for just a 2 or 3 weeks holiday break. I started smoking. I started, engaging in young people's vices, for that short period of time. And it was so interesting that when I got back home, the first 2 days, because it was a habit that I formed just over a short period of time, I started smoking in the house. So the very first day I went out to smoke in our house, and I came back, it was my mom, and I know it was my mom that opened the door, and she perceived the smell of smoke. She grabbed me like this and perceived, and she now felt that she realized that I actually went out to smoke. She fell on the ground and started weeping, started rolling on the ground. Trust, African mothers, typical African mother. She started rolling on the ground. My son has finished. My son is finished. This and that, this and that. That was the very last time I ever had a cigarette in my life. So many years ago. Her positioning, her wailing actually shaped my identity, and I can actually say my health, because knowing the health risk of engaging in such vices. That was the very last time I had a cigarette in my hand. So mothers help to build identities, more especially when they tell stories. Especially stories about if we have grandmothers, who are with us, who can tell stories about our culture and our heritage, we definitely know that most of these things, they actually capture these stories and they were able to tell it to different families and different generations. Women also in nation building help preserve truth across generations. Women tell stories in terms of context and in terms of values, and they bring national, honor to a nation when they remember these things through history, through time. I'm reminded of Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, a Nigerian politician back in the days, the mother of Fela Kuti. She used newspapers to fight colonialism, and she was able to make an impact in Nigeria so many, many years ago. There is also, in the Middle East, there's also Nawal Saadawi, who also wrote about truth under censorship, and she was able to make a very, very, very great impact. In South Africa, there is also Miriam Makeba. Remember Miriam Makeba, the song star, and then the writer also. She also spoke about apartheid globally, and through her storytelling in music, she was able to change things and also draw more attention towards apartheid. And that was also part of the reason, why the change in politics was also effective. In recent times, we have Mo Abudu in Nigeria, who is also a very good storyteller, mostly referred to as maybe the Oprah Winfrey of Nigeria or Africa. But Mo has been rebranding the African storytelling through screen. So from talk shows to her own studios, and now to her own originals, to her own movies. The Ebony Live film industry has actually produced a lot of movies that are telling positive stories about Africa, about Nigeria, as compared to the stories about Africa and Nigeria that can be told from other climes. In USA, we have Ava DuVernay. She's also a documentary and race injustice storyteller through her documentary films. So she's been able to make a lot of policy impact through her films about racism. Okay. And then in Senegal, also down here in Senegal, we have Rokaya Diallo, who also speaks very, very eloquently about race and gender. And in her delivery, she's able to make impact in policies and all the things that has to do with race and gender down in Senegal. So if in women's representation in media, according to Global Media Monitoring Project, only 25% of people we hear on the radio, TV, on newspaper, on the big screen are women. 25 only are women. That was a study that was done in 2020. UNESCO also came up with a study that only 15% of experts featured in media are women. So that's in comparison to the study that was done by also women of study in television and film. They did also another study in 2023 that 27% of key women in behind the scene roles are just women. So we're looking at directors, film producers, writers. Only 27% are women. I know it's saying that what a man can do, a woman can do better, right? So I'm sure that there are a whole lot of women who can do some of these directing roles or editing roles or scripting roles better than men, but it's only 7% that are represented in media production. Only 17% of top grossing films in 2023 had a female protagonist in it. This is according to USA Inclusion Initiative research. So you see, What does this actually mean? So it means that nations are being shown through half the lens of what people are supposed to see. What we're seeing is not the entire truth that we should see, because mostly women are not well represented in producing these stories and bringing the stories to life. Okay, and stories are not balanced, because if women are not well represented, then the stories are not balanced. Definitely not. So there are stereotypes in representation, and representation of women most times are actually very, very weak. So when women are missing in media and storytelling, so many things happen. Gender myths are going unchecked. So a lot of things that are tied to the myth surrounding women, they're not being checked, because women are not actually there to say their own part of the story. So that myth just continues. Then violence is normalized. Violence against women is normalized, which is not good. Then domestic roles are glorified while leadership is ignored. So domestic roles, I understand. I remember one presidential person that said women are actually, that his wife, which was supposed to be the first lady of the country, is meant to be in the other room. That was a joke then, but it wasn't really, it was not funny at all, because you can't relegate women to the other room. So most times women are relegated to domestic roles, just in the kitchen and the other room, while in leadership they're not well represented. So we can count how many female presidents we've had in the whole world as at the moment. Public memories could also get distorted because women are not well represented. These are some of the challenges that actually happen when women are not well represented. And we can see that in most of the Nollywood films and the Bollywood films that actually come out. Most times women ambitions are villainized, Women are, when a woman is very ambitious, it's almost like there's always something behind it. And the leadership is masculinized. Most times the leader should be a man. But I remember this movie that actually made waves. You know why it made waves? Because it was promoting women.
Can anybody hear Nnanna? I can't hear him anymore.
I was just about to ask the same. I think I've lost audio, but I thought it was just myself.
Very bold and
There he
strong
is.
light compared to,
Oh, I believe we lost him again.
Yes.
He's back. He's on mute though. Nnanna, I think you might be on mute. There you go.
Oh, no. Network threw me out. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
So I
lost
can
you for
just
like 30 seconds.
30 seconds, that's a long time.
You were
Okay.
talking about leadership being masculinized in movies, and women who are ambitious being viewed in a negative role.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So I went ahead to mention a movie that is called Women King, that was acted by Viola Davis. That was a movie that was very, very, that had a lot of, views and a lot of grossing in the box office, because it now started presenting women in a different light. And I also remember the women warriors in the movie Wakanda Forever, right? So they actually were showing women in a good light, women in power, women with strength, the women that can actually defend a nation. And it was actually the women that defend the city of Wakanda, and then brought down their enemies. So what do we need to do? We need to rewrite scripts with real female complexity. We have to make sure that we get women to be able to be part of the script writing and to tell their own victory stories as well. So we need to train women more in the editing rooms and then in the story room, so that they'll be part of these stories and they can also tell more stories about women's win. And I remember the movement that came up some years ago, Me Too. Remember that movement, right? It was of course about the experiences of women in different industries. So this kind of movement should be able to probably come more often to show that women also needs that attention and needs that recognition that they deserve, and that's a balance in whatever is also given to men as well. So in technology, women should also be given, the opportunities to tell their stories very well. There shouldn't be gatekeepers. And I'm happy with the advent of technology now, with advent of social media, most women can actually speak up and actually tell their own story by themselves, and there's not so much, gatekeeping. And that's also what I'm doing with Akocom, which is a platform that help people to document their stories, families to document their story from generation past till date. So women are now allowed to tell their stories by themselves without actually checking it, or without someone checking, their stories and gatekeeping them and all that. So in a nutshell and in conclusion, we need to also get government to support women-led documentaries. So government need to provide funding, need to provide training for young girls who are also into digital storytelling, who are also into filmmaking, so they can, promote more, stories around women. So we need to also create some national storytelling labs, dedicated to women, so they will have, rite of passage and right to the labs to be able to tell their own stories as well. And using AI, we should be able to see how we can use AI to document untold stories across different geographies and also in different dialects. So with AI now, dialect is not a barrier, language is not a barrier. You should be able to document your stories and preserve them for generations to come. And we should be able to celebrate women as story keepers, not just men. Women should also be celebrated as story keepers, not just men. Definitely there should be legislation and legislation that will support women leadership in major roles that are only known to be given to men. So in governing bodies and in associations and in ministries, women should be allowed by legislation to take up these roles, and then to see how we can bring more change and more inclusion for women in storytelling. So thank you so much. As we build the nations together, let's always remember that women are good storytellers. I know women are better storytellers than men, right? So I have 4 sisters and a mother and a wife, so I know a lot about storytelling from women. So it's now time for us to take this storytelling to the main stage, to the mainstream, so that countries and nations and industries should be actually impacted positively from the stories from women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nnanna. Oh my goodness, what an insightful session. And I must say, Nnanna, when you talk about your personal experiences, I think that makes it, for me personally, it resonates so much. I mean, you talked about, the impact your mum had on you when she figured out you were smoking. And I think you said typical African mothers. I will turn around and say, I think that's typical mothers everywhere. And I say that from experience because my closest uncle, who is like a brother to me, he did the same. He came home one day with a little smoke in his hand, and his mother, my grandmother, read him the riot act. He has not done it since. So it's so nice to hear these stories, and it resonates so well in that it made me think back, even growing up. Actually, it was more the females and the women in our family who told us stories and told us stories about history, about family history and general history. So you know what? It's just so spot on. I have got to ask you a personal question, though, because you spoke about family, and I thought I knew the answer to this, but I could be wrong. So you have achieved what you have achieved in media and storytelling so far. In your personal life, which female figure has had the most impact in shaping you as you are today?
I would definitely say my mom. You already know the answer,
Well, when you said 4 sisters and wife, I started wavering.
No, I mean, it's my mom, because even before I knew anything, she already had stories about me and she kept them, and she's been the one telling the stories beyond. She knows a lot more about me beyond what my sisters and my wife would know. I mean, I remember a very interesting story that I never forget, never forget. My mom told me that when I was small, maybe about 4 years or 5, I always like watching cartoons or whatever is happening on the TV screen, right? I mean, maybe that's why I turned out to be a cinematographer. So I always enjoy watching it. I'll be so engrossed on the screen that at one time I was watching the TV and the light went off. So in Nigeria, the light is by NEPA, like, the NEPA is the company that provides light. The light went off and I couldn't see the TV screen. Being a little child, I didn't know what light meant and all of that. All I knew was that I couldn't see the TV screen. So, and I know that then the only way to provide light was when light goes off, you get a lantern, you turn on the lantern, and then you can see. So when the screen went off, I started screaming. I started telling them to bring the lantern. I can't see the TV. They should bring the lantern. I need to see the TV, Oh my God, like she remembers this story till tomorrow. Like, and I still remember the story,
There you go, the
So
innocence.
it's
Yeah, that is
you know,
fantastic. I thought it would be your mum, but I think for many it would be their mums, wouldn't it?
Ah,
I think
yeah.
Noella, you have your hand up. Do you have a question for Nana?
yes, yes, yes. I mean, that was a great storytelling presentation. I mean, you told us a lot of stories while you were making your presentation. So that was storytelling in itself. Thank you so much, Nnanna. I mean, that was very relaxing, you know. It was stimulating intellectually, but relaxing. Now, what I want to know is, I know that I have seen you talk about ACOCOM on Facebook and all of that, but could you just tell us what ACOCOM is about and what really prompted you to begin this project? ACOCOM.
Okay. Docucom is a platform that helps families document their life stories from generation past till date, carefully preserving them for generations to come. Stories in terms of text, pictures, audio recordings, and then video, importantly. So what inspired me to build Akokon was back in 2020, just before COVID, as a cinematographer and a filmmaker, I was very busy doing a lot of films, producing shows, concerts, weddings, and all of that. And then I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about my father-in-law, who is a very, very interesting personnel, who's got a hospital he's a phenomenal person. I mean, he's a doctor that owns his own hospital. He actually can stop on the road and we see somebody with goiter and say, do you want to take it out? Is it paining you? He'll take you to the theater and just take it off, and he's just good like that. In his church back in Port Harcourt, he's got the vicar and the priest and the whole family under retainership, free medication. So I was going to capture his story, get him to 1 or 2 surgeries, and also, get to understand his life entirely on film. But I couldn't do it. Unfortunately, January 2020, he took it and died suddenly. We lost him. So with that as a pain point for me, and being that my kids were still very young then, so they didn't even get to meet him very well, and they don't even know him very well. So I've now taken it personally on me to start preserving, to advocate and tell people about documenting their life stories while their family members are still around, because there'll be a time when they will not be around. And so with that, I was able to now go to film my own dad's stories and my own mom's stories from start to finish, their life history, and they were able to talk about stories that happened way as far back as they can remember, their own parents and their own grandparents, like 4 or 5 generations before us, things I never knew about. So I got them on tape, I got them recorded. So because I'm also a filmmaker, I came to realize that there's so much people I can reach, documenting their videos with a professional camera. So the best way to do this is to create an app that is definitely positioned for this, so that families can now, on their own, create their stories and then preserve them for generations to come. And that's what we're doing with ACOCOM, especially with those in the diaspora, families in the diaspora, or who have moved across different platforms. If your families are scattered because of migration, to different locations, it's a good place to get everybody's story together and then to document your migration story and your family stories so that this can be preserved for tomorrow generation. Because we know with social media and with what's going on online, the next generation will have a lot of data with them. And that if care is not taken, they will lose their identity, they will lose their heritage, they will lose their value and their legacy. So we need to have a safe space to keep these things. And it's not definitely for social media. It's not everything that should be on social media, but everything in a family should be documented for good, gatekeeping for tomorrow.
So this is meant to be a private content, is it?
Yes, definitely private content, just accessed by the family alone. So
Okay.
it's only the family that can access the content, yes.
And it's as simple as downloading the app. And for example, if I download the app and follow the instructions, this is absolutely exciting.
Is the app available right
Yes.
now?
So we're doing the MVP. So we're doing the beta testing. It's available. We have about 150 users now. So it's available for a closed user for now. Very soon we're going to make it available for the entire public. So now just a closed user group, about 150 users, about 50 families that are doing the testing on it now. So before we make it open to the general public, so that everybody from any walks of life can actually download it and then use it to document their family stories. Yes.
Absolutely fantastic. I must say that's something I'm just immediately interested in, just to preserve
Honestly.
that history being away from my birth country.
This is very important, and it really hits home because just before my mom passed, I was actually planning to interview my mom and my dad to get some pieces of information about their lives that we didn't know. And my mom also died suddenly, and I never got to do that. And just recently, I was discussing with one of my siblings, and I was like, I had wanted to do this, but I think I procrastinated for too long. Of course, I didn't live in the same city with my mom or my dad, but I was thinking that on one of the occasions of when I would return for holiday, I'll just take a notebook and document their lives. And because, there was so many things we didn't even know about their own families, but we never got to document all these things. So this is a very good one, really. People really need to preserve their own history, because like you said, migration is happening, people are migrating to different places. But at the end of the day, we all want to know our roots, we want to identify with our roots, So well done. So we're going to talk more about this, Nnanna. Yeah, we're going to talk more about this after the conference. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nnanna. There are more questions, but I'm also conscious of time. Having said that, there is one important question that has popped up. And if you don't mind, if I can ask you that question before we then fine, fantastic. So how can media be leveraged to promote gender equality and social change?
So media can be used, and media should be used to promote social change and gender equality by getting more people who understand, gender equality, getting more individuals who are inclined to that, who are advocates of that, to be on the platforms and to be very visible, to be vocal, to be able to talk about these things, and creating content that addresses these scenarios. Most times people don't just accept something they hear once. I mean, that's the logic behind adverts. When you're seeing an ad like Coca-Cola, you get to see Coca-Cola ads so many times. Subconsciously, when you're thirsty, you just think about Coca-Cola because you've seen the ad subconsciously so many times, and it's tied to thirst. So women and gender equality and all these vices needs to be woven into stories and presented from different influencers and different platforms and different storytellers to everyone on social media, using print media, digital, TV, radio, all the different social media platforms. By speaking about these things constantly and frequently, it will now start going into the subconscious of everyone that is listening. And before you know it, they will now actually start, because if whether we like it or even the lawmakers are also on social media listening, but if you start going into the subconscious, with time they can now start influencing, it will start influencing how they make laws that would impact, women in these areas.
Yes, and that is immediately a straightforward way to, almost, for lack of a better word, normalizing it. So the more frequently you hear it, that is what's going to stick in your mind. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nnanna, for an amazing session. I'm getting a lot of love for this session on the chat. There are more questions coming up on the chat if you're happy to stay on. And of course, please, can you share your handles, your LinkedIn handle, your Insta handle, and just anything where we can even be updated on the app as and when it's ready, which I assume might be on your LinkedIn profile as well. So please do share your LinkedIn handles. Weluche, thank you for sharing your LinkedIn handle. And I'd encourage all our delegates just to connect with our speakers, all to do with networking and being out there. So thank you so much, Nnanna, for your time this evening, for the insight this evening. And boy, have I learned something new. Lots of things that I knew. So thank you so much. A warm thank you for Nnanna. Thank you so much.